Who will watch the games if there's no victor?
Get her out.
The Hunger Games franchise isn't slowing down anytime soon, and with Sunrise on the Reaping on the horizon, fans have a lot to get excited about. The movie is set to drop next year and continues the ever-expanding Suzanne Collins build. This time, we're heading into the story of the 50th Hunger Games, the one Haymitch Abernathy won long before he became Katniss's crusty, reluctant mentor. The book, which is Collins' fifth Hunger Games novel and second prequel, hits shelves in March 2025. Not long after it was announced, Lionsgate jumped into action and confirmed the film adaptation. So now we're looking at about a year and a half between the book's release and the movie, which is a quick turnaround, though not totally unheard of. They did something similar with The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Because of that tight timeline, casting is already underway, and of course, most of the buzz is focused on who's going to play a teenage Haymitch. That's a big deal. Woody Harrelson left some major shoes to fill. Then there's the tricky task of casting a middle-aged version of President Snow. With the passing of Donald Sutherland, finding someone new to step into the role has become an emotional and symbolic decision. And now, if the rumors swirling around are true, there might be a surprising twist in how the casting is playing out. So here's where things get interesting. Word is that Charlie Plummer and Ralph Fiennes are the top choices to play young Haymitch and President Snow respectively. According to Nexus Point News, Plummer, who's 25, is currently in the running for Haymitch, while Fiennes has apparently already been offered the Snow role. And while Plummer hasn't been a major name in fan discussion so far, he's got a solid resume. He's best known for playing the lead in Looking for Alaska miniseries and also starred in the emotional indie drama Lean on Pete. He's got the acting chops, the right kind of intensity, and let's be honest, he sort of looks like a young Woody Harrelson, which helps. Fiennes, on the other hand, is a very familiar face when it comes to playing iconic villains. Honestly, this is a casting choice that makes perfect sense. The Hunger Games franchise has always leaned toward veteran A-list actors for its older, more powerful characters, and Fiennes is a seasoned pro. You've seen him play chilling characters before. He was the monstrous Eamon Goeth in Schindler's List, and of course, the terrifying Lord Voldemort in Harry Potter. So slipping into the cold, calculating skin of President Snow, totally within his wheelhouse. But here's the funny part, Plummer and Fiennes have actually worked together before. In The Return, a film adaptation of Homer's The Odyssey, they played father and son. Fiennes took on the role of Odysseus, while Plummer played Telemachus. Their dynamic in that movie was tense, but also deeply rooted in loyalty and love. In Sunrise on the Reaping, though, their characters are on completely opposite sides. Haymitch and Snow have an intense, antagonistic relationship. Snow psychologically torments Haymitch, just like he does with Katniss later on. And as we learn in this prequel, Haymitch actually tried to rebel against the Capitol during his games, something that made him a target for Snow's manipulation. That kind of history means we're going to see some real on-screen tension between the two characters. And since Plummer and Fiennes already have a working rapport from The Return, there's a good chance their chemistry could bring even more depth to that rivalry. Oddly enough, their pairing could spark some confusion or comparisons in 2026 because that's when Sunrise on the Reaping is supposed to hit theaters, right around the same time as another major adaptation of The Odyssey, this time by Christopher Nolan. Nolan's version will reportedly be more traditional, sticking closely to the original myth. Matt Damon has already been cast as Odysseus, and there's buzz that Tom Holland could be playing Telemachus. So while these two films won't be direct box office rivals, they will end up getting linked in people's minds, especially if both include similar character dynamics with different actors. Meanwhile, some familiar faces from the original Hunger Games movies might also be making a comeback. There's speculation that Elizabeth Banks and Stanley Tucci could return as Effie Trinket and Caesar Flickerman, even though the movie is set 25 years earlier. The reasoning? The Capitol is known for all sorts of artificial enhancements and cosmetic changes, so it wouldn't be too hard to justify them looking a little younger than they should. Another casting update that got people talking is Jesse Plemons being brought in to play Plutarch Heavensby, the crafty capital game maker who's secretly working with the rebellion. He was originally played by the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, and many fans had already pointed out to Plemons as a solid choice for the role. He's shown time and again that he can handle complex, morally gray characters, whether it's on Breaking Bad, Fargo, or in darker films like Killers of the Flower Moon. But let's talk about one of the most hyped castings so far, Mckenna Grace as Maisie Donner. Fans have been rooting for her to land a major role in a Hunger Games prequel for ages, and now it's finally happening. Maisie is a member of the District 12's merchant class and one of the unlucky tributes forced to compete in the 50th Games, which had twice the usual number of contestants. She's a big deal in the story, not just a fellow tribute, but also because she's a pivotal figure in Haymitch's arc. Grace's range is what makes this such a win. She's already played all sorts of roles, from smart, emotional kids to action-ready leads and even characters caught up in dystopian horrors like in The Handmaid's Tale. Whether she's showing vulnerability in Young Sheldon, toughness in Ghostbusters, or emotional depth in Gifted, she always brings something real to her characters. Plus, she looks exactly how Maisie was described in the book. So while it's rare for fan casting dreams to become reality, this one kind of did. That said, there's always added pressure when an actor is fan-picked. People expect them to be perfect from the start, but if anyone can meet those expectations, it's Grace. She might not win an Oscar for it, but her performance is bound to be memorable. She's also the most age-appropriate casting of the main trio, which should help with authenticity. When you pair her with rising stars like Whitney Peak and Joseph Zada, this movie really starts to sound like it's firing on all cylinders. And speaking of the movie's production, there's some big news there too. According to Deadline, Sunrise on the Reaping might be heading to Cannes for a major sale. If the deal goes through, the film could end up with one of the highest budgets in Hunger Games history, somewhere between $150 and $200 million. That would actually put it above Mockingjay Part 2, which held the record at $160 million. So Lionsgate clearly has a lot of faith in this next chapter. The size of that budget speaks volumes. It tells us that the studio is betting big on this movie, not just financially but in terms of its ability to connect with both longtime fans and newer audiences. Remember when The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was released in 2023? It had a more modest $100 million budget. Still, it pulled in $349 million worldwide, proving that there's still a huge appetite for stories set in Panem. So although Mockingjay Part 2 had the highest budget, it also ended up being the lowest grossing film of the original four. That's probably why Lionsgate played it safer with Ballad. But now that Ballad has proven the franchise still works, Sunrise on the Reaping is being positioned as a real blockbuster event. All in all, it looks like Sunrise on the Reaping has the potential to be one of the most impactful Hunger Games films yet. Between the exciting casting choices, the potential returns of fan-favorite characters, and a huge budget that could bring the 50th Games to life in epic fashion, there's a lot to look forward to. Whether it's diving deeper into Haymitch's tragic past, watching Mckenna Grace shine, or seeing Ralph Fiennes scheme as President Snow, this next installment is shaping up to be something special. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.